People that are familiar with the process of antiquing, hunting for antiques, probably share the same feeling that I have after a day of searching and hunting and then returning home with your treasure. You're tired, you're weary, but you're so excited to open up the things that you found, to look at them more closely, and then to find places in your home for those treasures. I was in Canada last week with my friends and family, and I spent a day antiquing with my friends. I found some wonderful things. My friend Laura found some great things as well, as did Derek. And I had the wonderful pleasure of carting everything back to New York with me, including a beautiful quilt that Laura actually found at the next antique mall that we visited. The quilt is a white work quilt, and it's in great condition. She wanted it, I wanted it. There were a bunch of things that we both saw that we both wanted. Some Staffordshire dogs. Anyways, by the end of the day, we had all of our stuff and we decided who was gonna buy what. So I got the quilt, Laura got the Staffordshire dogs. And one of the things that I did pick up was a tiny little old porcelain doll. So, when you're antiquing, when you're looking at old stuff in the context of an antique mall or an antique store, yard sale, thrift store, there is always this pressure to assess what it is you're looking at. You're looking at the condition, you're looking at the price, you're trying to figure out whether you really want this thing. And I find that there's always more that you learn about the things when you bring them home. There's such a limited time while you're in the store that you have to look at everything else. So, when you find something that you like, you're conscious of having to look at other stuff. So I think we all sort of impose a time limit on how much we're gonna look at something in the shop before we decide, I'm gonna buy this or I'm not gonna buy this. When you actually buy something and you bring it home, now it's with you, and now you can really assess. Sometimes, I will admit, I have brought things home and I've looked at them more closely, or I've discovered things that I hadn't seen in the shop that make me realize, oh, I shouldn't have bought this. This was a little bit of a mistake. And that's okay. The things that I buy, the things that I have bought in the past, are never huge investments. I don't spend a lot of money on antiques, and I know that that's all relative. But the reason why I enjoy this process is because the stakes for me are low. I set the stakes so that they're low. I have my budget, I have my limits, and when I buy things, I'm usually buying things that I feel are very reasonably priced for what they are. What that means is that when I bring something home, if I don't really love it immediately, or 3 weeks later, a year later, I'm fine to take that to a thrift store and donate it, or to give it to a friend if a friend really likes it. Part of the joy of coming home and assessing your treasure is that you learn a lot more about the thing. You can look it up online, you can compare it to other things that you have, and sometimes the things that I buy need a little bit of care. Very often when I find something in a thrift store, junk shop, antique mall, it requires cleaning. Maybe it requires a little bit of oiling. Like if I buy a wicker basket, I usually wash it, get all the grime off of it, and then re-oil it. If I buy anything that's cloth, like a sheet or a blanket, I buy a lot of linen sheets. I usually wash them and dry them and iron them, even though sometimes in the shop they have been washed and ironed. I like to just make sure that it's washed. So the care of something when I bring it home is part of the process in which I learn more about it. Now, if you're not used to collecting antiques or old things, you might be a little scared of damaging the thing. You might think, oh, this is old and precious, and what if I ruin it? Well, let me just say that there is a lot of stuff out there, And museums are full of examples of all of the creations of mankind throughout history. So that is a consolation to me, knowing that nothing I own or is in my possession is really historically rare and precious. And if I try to fix something or repair something or clean something and I ruin it, I move on. I don't feel bad. When I buy this stuff, I'm buying it to use it and to love it. And sometimes in order to love it, I actually need to put some work into it. Sometimes I don't really know what I'm doing while I'm trying to figure out how to fix or clean something. And if I ruin it, it's a bit of a shame, but that's also part of the process of how I've learned to care for old things. So today I am going to attempt to fix / bring this porcelain doll back to a stage that reminds me of the porcelain dolls that I've seen in the past in their original condition. Many little things have happened to this doll over time, where the person has covered the doll with an extra layer of fabric that looks synthetic. I also discovered when I came home, and this is something that I didn't know when I saw this in the antique mall, that there was Scotch tape taping the porcelain head to the cloth body. And that tape has discolored and has gotten all nasty. I want to remove that. So today I am performing what I consider doll surgery. And this is, I think, a great example of finding something, bringing it home, and then putting very delicate care into it in order to really make it something that I love. I do this very often with old things, and especially things that are related to my bike, leather things, metal things like my bell. I'll buy something old and I'll polish it up. So this doll actually requires quite a bit of work, I think. The first thing is removing these sort of not completely old, but these clothes that were stitched right onto the doll. I'm going to take them off and I'm going to see what's underneath, what the condition of the original linen body is in. So let's see what we have here. The first thing I'm going to do is remove all of this stuff. So these clothes here, they're not original. They were added on, and this is what I'm going to take off. I actually started in Toronto. I started cutting them off and then realized there was sawdust falling out. So I stopped, taped it together, and thought, I'm going to continue this in New York. So I also discovered that this head is not really attached to the body. Okay. This is really what I do. I'm going to cut these clothes off. And while I'm doing stuff like this, I'm just assessing, like, what's the best way to do this? I don't like the fact that she's sort of scraping this enamel tray, so I'm just going to put something down to buffer her contact with the surface. Okay. Oh, her dress came off. That's better. There. That is going to get tossed. So now she's cushioned, and I'm going to take all of this off. This stuff feels like some kind of synthetic rayon or something not nice. Here we go. Okay, so this head is just not, it's stuck on with tape. This porcelain head. Sometimes these porcelain heads have holes in them. I've seen that actually many times. And the holes, there's 2 holes here and there's 2 holes in the front. Those holes are used to actually stitch the head to the cloth body. This doesn't have holes in it, and so I did some research and found out that these would be glued onto this cloth body. I'm just going to remove this now. It's really hideous that it's just tape. Okay, little lady, your head has been released. And now, let's get rid of all of this. I'm being very careful to not cut the original linen cloth underneath. This is the cloth that I want exposed, because that's the original stuff. And here, oh, we can see the sawdust filled body. I kind of want to keep that intact as much as possible. So I'm probably going to do a little repair here and put something on top of here to hold that sawdust in place. You know, when I'm doing something like this, sometimes I get a little like frustrated or irritated, like, oh, why did someone do this to this doll? Why did they stitch right to the cloth? And then I have to remind myself that person who did this never intended for this doll to be or maybe they did, but if this was being used and loved by someone, they were probably doing it because this is what they wanted to do to their doll, not envisioning that it would be in an antique mall years, decades later, being purchased by somebody else. And I think that that is part of the beauty of these things. I love that they come with a history, and it was somebody else's object, and they cared for it, or they did whatever they thought they needed to do to it, or whatever they wanted to do to it, and now I'm doing the same. I'm not doing this for the sake of reselling this doll. I'm doing it because this is how I want to have this thing. And this is the main cloth that's covering the body. Stitched on the top here too. If this were in a museum and conservation was being done to this thing, there are sort of accepted worldwide conservation techniques that are adhered to by institutions across the world. One of the things that museums try to do is, if any repair or restoration is done to something, they try to make sure, or they really work to make that repair and restoration reversible, so that in the future, if there's a better technique for fixing or restoring something, the work that was done now could be taken apart and reversed. So that's something that I try to do when I can, but to a limit. I mean, with something like this, there are so many of these. I don't feel like I need to care for this as though we're going to be in, it's going to end up in a museum. But tape, like tape onto the cloth, is a kind of no-no. that was done, and you can see here now there's a big stain, and that's not going away. There's also a stain over here, and I could feel it's sticky. Okay, so there. This is coming back to what it originally would have looked like. That's what I've seen before. It's this really sort of coarse linen body that's stuffed with sawdust. That's how it's supposed to be. Okay, now I'm going to take off the little legs, these parts. Oh, good. Good riddance. There. I don't know about you, but I think that she already looks so much better. Why did I want one of these? Because when I worked at Pioneer Village, I saw a couple of examples and was kind of infatuated by just what this looked like. There's something, as the kids say, iconic about these. Okay, so there. Now we have the doll back to really, I mean, I think that just looks so much better, and this is more like its original state. Now I'm going to do two things. I'm going to sew this up and reinforce it with a bit of twill tape, and then I will tackle removing the hideous tape residue from the ceramic part. So when I'm sewing something, especially something that needs to be pulled tightly like this, I wax the thread. I'm using pure linen thread here. Linen thread is strong. And I'm going to double the thread. And first, I'm going to just stitch this closed. Her poor little body. This really does feel like surgery. Giving her stitches. This doll is one of those rare times that I buy something old that doesn't really have a use. My whole thing is going to the antique places and buying things that I could actually use every day in my home. But every now and then, like the Staffordshire dogs, there's stuff that just has sort of historical significance. Okay, there. So maybe I shouldn't have pulled so tightly. I've just stitched that closed, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of cloth. This is linen tape. And I'm just going to sew that on top here like this. Just to, I don't know, just to sort of close it. This is going to get covered because I am going to do something that's irreversible. I'm going to glue the head onto the body. But I just want to prevent any more sawdust from falling out. So this is like a structural repair. Okay. Let's do this. And I'm not going to pull very tightly because I don't want to make large holes in this linen. The original linen body. I'm just going to go around and tack this tape into place. What am I going to do with this thing? I'm just going to have it. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I would really like to make some clothes for it. Yay! You know, when I was growing up, I'm just going to admit it was a different time, but my parents did not want me playing with dolls. And I was a very headstrong child. I mean, if I wanted to do something, I unfortunately did not relent. So guess what? I played with dolls. And I liked it. And it was fun. And I'm really glad that times have changed, sort of. And parents understand that they should just let their kids play with whatever they want and wear whatever they want to wear. And so this is kind of connected to that, to being a kid and wanting something, having just a desire to play with the toys that I wanted to play with, and not really knowing that it wasn't okay, or that it was frowned upon, or that it was weird, in quotes, weird, that little boys shouldn't be playing with dolls. I did it because because I wanted to, and I made that happen. But it makes me sad to think about all the little boys that wanted to play with dolls, or that want to play with dolls that aren't allowed to play with dolls. Or the little girls that want to be a firefighter, or that don't want to wear dresses and don't want to play with dolls that are given dolls. And you know, as an adult, this liberating thing is that, as Ariana Grande sang about, I want it, I thought, I like it, I bought it. So there. Okay, so, oh, this is actually really nice. I did not anticipate this repair being so satisfying, but just look at this top. I mean, that is very pleasing to the eye. Okay, so now that the body has been sort of put together satisfactorily, is that a word? I don't know. I am going to tackle this little porcelain head. So I have seen these on their own, like in cases at antique stores and antique malls, just the heads for sale. Again, these aren't rare. And this one, when I pulled apart the doll, it's stamped with Germany on the back, which indicates that it's not as early as like 1830, 1840. It's later, it's probably 1900, 1910, which makes me feel even better about doing this, gluing it together. I'm not going to be fussy about wanting to take this apart later and not being able to do that by gluing the head onto the body. But before I glue this head onto the cloth body, I want to remove all this gunk that's on here from the tape. And I have my techniques. So this removal of sticky substances or anything that's on the surface that feels like residue or varnish or something tacky. I have two things that are my go-to substances to use for the removal of stuff. Alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, which I keep under the bathroom sink, and acetone or nail polish remover. So I have acetone and alcohol. And the third thing that I have is also paint thinner. But between acetone and rubbing alcohol, usually one of those works as the solvent for most things. And what I do is I do a little test first, and I see if rubbing the substance on the surface is removing it, and if it isn't, then I try the other thing. And if it's neither of those things, then I start exploring other substances. But usually it's one of these will work to remove the sticky residue. Okay. Instead of using Q-tips, what I do is I actually make little swabs, and I use rolled cotton. This is available from the drugstore, and a bamboo skewer. I just wet the top of the skewer. I pull out a bit of this rolled cotton, and then I place the skewer onto the cotton and roll this between my fingers. This is a thing that conservators do. I was taught how to do this by a paintings conservator, my friend Heidi. And there is a lovely cotton swab. And then when you're done with this, you just pull this off of the skewer and make another one. And conservators will go through hundreds or thousands of these while they're cleaning things, like paintings. So I have my little swab. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with acetone, actually. And first, I need to make sure that I've removed all of the actual tape from the surface of the porcelain, so that only the residue remains. Okay, that looks good. And I don't believe there's any tape on there. And now I'm going to start with the acetone. Actually, I'm going to put on some gloves. Now, I'm going to just get some acetone and test and see if this will remove the gunk. And look at that. It comes right off. Okay, so I know acetone works. I don't have to move to the alcohol. The acetone will clear off all of this residue quite nicely. Now, be very careful when using substances like this. Don't just assume that it's going to remove only what you want it to remove. If you accidentally start going up into here on the face, I don't actually know what this coloring is. I don't know if it's underglaze for sure. It might be enamel that's put onto the surface over the glaze. And if I accidentally or carelessly moved my swab up into the face, I could remove that, and then that's irreversible. It's irreversible. You must not know about me. You must not know about me. Anyways, Beyonce, stop. Okay, so I'm just... Look at that. Isn't that so satisfying? This is why I have no friends. This is the sort of thing that is like what I'll do on a quiet afternoon, downtime. This is like my playtime, where this makes no sense. This is not in quotes a good use of time, but it's just fun and it's so interesting. It's fascinating. Okay, so I don't know if you saw that. I took that little swab off. This is the dirty swab. And I made a clean swab, and now I'm just gonna make sure that every little bit of residue is off of her. That nasty tape residue. There, look how happy she looks now. She was kind of sad before, depressed. Now she looks a little more, well, I wouldn't say she looks happy, but she's still, from depressed, she went to melancholic. Okay, the back. So I'm going to do the same thing on the back. And the cotton is catching because the acetone is dissolving that sticky substance and sticking to it. But I'm just persevering. And look at that, it's coming right off. Again, I'm not going anywhere near the colored parts. Just doing what I need to do to clean this up. There. And so watch how I remove the swab. I just pull this off like this. And I'm going to make one more little swab. I'm going to make a tiny one. A little bit of cotton gets rolled tightly. I use this sort of space between my fingers, the dip, to press the head of the swab into to make it nice and tight. Tiny bit more acetone. And give her a good cleaning. Das ist kein Schmutz. Nein, das ist kein Schmutz. Siehst du, das ist in Deutschland gemacht. Okay, there. Look at that. Nice and clean. Ready to be glued on to her torso. Like that. You love me as long as you wanted, and then someday you'd leave me for somebody new. Bum, 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 worry. Why do I let myself worry? Wondering, what in the world did I do? I'm crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for crying and crazy for trying, and I'm crazy for loving you. Okay, sometimes I get a little overambitious. I'm going to use a little bit of acetone to see if I can actually remove the residue from the linen, the tape residue. No, it's not working. Just stop. Quit while you're ahead. It's fine. She's going to be wearing clothes one day. So I'm going to mix my epoxy now, and I'm going to use a 2-part epoxy. This is going to be reversible once I put the epoxy on here, I think. I think it'll be reversible. This head's going to get glued on to the cloth. So what I do is I don't save like crap, like I'm going to save these plastic containers because I might need to use them for mixing something. If I lived in a house and I had a basement or a garage, maybe I would. Even so, that's against my kind of philosophy of don't keep things that don't spark joy when you hold them. And a used egg carton does not spark joy. So I don't save this stuff, but in a situation like this, where, I need to mix some epoxy and it would be very handy to have just a bit of something disposable plastic, I run down to the recycling bin in our building, our mutual recycling bin that everybody uses in the building, and I rummage through and I always find something that I could use. It's a good thing it's not on the street, because if it was on the street, I wouldn't do that, because there are in the bins on the street. Okay, so the 2-part epoxy needs to be mixed in equal parts, and this is how we do it. Like that. There. Okay. And put this back on. There. Okay. Now give it a good mix. There, that looks good. Now let's put epoxy into you, my dear. Of messy stuff. Try to be neat. Sometimes I make a big mess. Shh, don't tell anybody. My reputation will be ruined. The pressures of maintaining a perfect facade for the public. Okay, I think that's good. I don't want to go crazy with this. Maybe I'll fill her head. Stop filling her head with nonsense. Okay, there. Wipe this off before it sets. And then move this out of the way. Let's see, here goes nothing. Let's put her in place, and then, okay. I don't know if this is going to work, but hopefully it does. Okay. Shine to play on that moon. Dee 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 dee. Moon in all your splendor, to my heart. Speak once again of my love, my lips so sweet and tender, like petals fall apart. Once again, oh. Oh, heavens. There. I'm just rigging this up to hold it in place. Okay. She's glued. Poor little thing. There. Now she's going to just sit and dry. There you have it. Doll surgery. She's in recovery now. She is going to rest while she gets better. Let me show you the inspiration for her clothing. So when I saw her in the antique mall and decided I was going to bring her home, I remembered this book, and I thought, oh, I am going to take scraps of fabric, like really nice fabric, and I'm going to make some things for her from this book, which is details of beautiful examples of 19th century clothing from the Victorian Albert Museum. So for that doll, the first thing that I'm going to make, this is what happens. I have this to-do list of things I'm going to do, and like only a tenth of those things actually end up happening. But it's fine to put things on there because some of the things actually really do happen. Okay, so I see this doll as kind of 1860s, 1880s. So this is the sort of dress that I'm going to make for her. And the way that this dress actually has all this volume is because of an undergarment called a crinoline or a hoop skirt, which is, where are you? Where is section with the panties? The undergarments, you know, me looking for the undergarments. Me see a few, me not find what me looking for. There we go. There's a crinoline, a cage crinoline it's called because it looks like a cage. This is later because it has the weight towards the back. But there's another one in here. This is the one I was looking for. Cage crinoline, about 1860. And these wires were made of something called sprung steel. And that metal was tempered in a way that if it was sort of pushed and bent together, it would spring back into shape. So if a lady walked through a very narrow door and squished all of these wires, they wouldn't get squished and then stay that way. As soon as she came out of the doorway, they would go boom and bounce back to life. And I sort of witnessed this at I did witness this at Pioneer Village. This was the era of the costumes that the ladies wore. And it's just very magnificent to see it moving. It's like a bell with the hem just above the ground. They floated like angels. So this was the other dress that I was thinking of making for her, for the doll. She's gonna have that underneath, and this something like this on top, or that. Well, there you have it, doll surgery. We're growing up, but I think it's important to every now and then go back to what it was like to be a kid and to just play. It's something that sometimes isn't warranted on a busy schedule. I have to do this, 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 and this. And when you're prioritizing, something playful comes at the very end and is often never actually achieved. But I do feel like it's so important. This is the sort of thing that fuels the hard work later. I'll keep you abreast of how doll progress goes.